All right, welcome to the first of its kind, world-changing manufacturers network. Lisa Ryan has her ears to the ground and her heart in the game. Get ongoing education and new connections right here with Lisa and the Manufacturers Network. Buckle your seat, listen, and spread the word. Here's Lisa.
Welcome to the Manufacturers Network. I'm Lisa Ryan, and I'm excited to introduce our guest today, William Spengler. William is the founder of Frederick Fox, a recruiting firm that's helped over 700 companies hire top-tier finance talent. He specializes in helping manufacturing CFOs fill critical roles fast, from cost accountants to plant controllers. So, William, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for having me on today. You're correct. We are a staffing company. This business was started about 6 years ago. We're about 57 people total. And to your point, we do a lot in the manufacturing is probably our number one client base, and construction being number two. And I would say SaaS number three, but we're seeing a huge uptick in manufacturing needs, specifically within accounting and finance is where we focus. But I'm happy to be on your show, and thanks for the airtime today.
Absolutely. So share with us a little bit about your background and what got you into doing what you do.
Sure. I'm an agency recruiter, been at it. This is my 15th year in agency recruiting, and I have a degree in accounting and finance from Ohio State University, and I was a cost accountant. I actually worked for a gun manufacturer called Smith & Wesson in Massachusetts, and I realized I didn't want to be a cost accountant, and I went to a recruiting firm to try to find a new accounting job, and they said, hey, you'd be a good recruiter. And the rest is history. I got out of manufacturing, cost accounting, and I became a recruiter about 15 years ago. I won't bore you, but I worked for a big firm for about 6 years called LHH. Then I became a partner in a $100 million business called Tima. And then I was just young enough and just dumb enough to start this company about 6 years ago. And we've been growing and being successful since. So
that's a funny background. I actually started my career as an executive recruiter, and I'm married to a cost accountant.
Oh, would you look at that?
And he's not going anywhere because he really likes his job in manufacturing after 13 years being with a company that he didn't. But the thing is, in manufacturing, CFOs just don't need someone to close the book. They need cost accountants who understand standard costing, variance analysis, industry flows, all those things that my husband understands, but basically make me want to poke my eyes out. So with those roles being some of the hardest to fill nationwide, how are manufacturing CFOs recruiting talent before they're in crisis mode?
Yeah, I think that you just having an understanding of within 25 miles, what manufacturing companies there are. I think it's about being proactive because it's such a narrow scope, even within accounting. I think it makes sense to understand who are all the major manufacturers. We talk to CFOs all the time that are a manufacturer, but they're in a town with not a lot of manufacturing. So I think a lot of these CFOs are either having to relocate in manufacturing talent, or if they have a local market of manufacturing, I think it's about being proactive to know who those people are. Because to your point, it is very different from other accounting positions. So how do you get them? I think it's being proactive and understanding your market and making connections beforehand. Otherwise, you're paying someone like us, a recruiter, and I get it. Nobody wants to pay a recruiter recruiting fees. We're like attorneys, but that's my best advice is to be proactive about networking.
And what's the scoop with 25 miles? Why is that important?
Because so many companies are going back to work, back to the office. In COVID 2020 through 2023, there was a lot of this fully remote. But I think manufacturing more so is wanting to bring people back to the office. A lot of our manufacturing clients are wanting to see 4 days a week on site, if not fully on site now. And I think it just has to do with more communication with the actual operations of the business versus maybe like a tech or a SaaS or AI. You have a technical culture where everybody's remote. Manufacturing, to your point, there's so much managerial accounting that needs to be done and so much intercompany communication that we're just seeing a huge trend of fully back on site within manufacturing.
We're also seeing controllers in manufacturing, their salaries jumping $120K to $155 in just a couple of years. So besides the raw material costs already squeezing margins, what are some creative ways that manufacturing CFOs can stay competitive in hiring without wrecking their P&L?
I would say that the tariffs aren't helping, but the point you made about salaries going up, I have been telling people cost accountants and accountants are like the new software engineers. They're demanding higher salaries. There's less accounting and finance talent available. And a lot of people have gotten out of the accounting and finance profession and tried to chase tech and other data and financial analytics. So accountants are almost becoming the new software engineers, the new divas that can and rightfully demand a higher salary. To answer your question, how do you attract people without wrecking your P&L? I think you'd have to see the value of increased employee costs and how that could save money by understanding your costs or your operations to be more efficient. I think getting talent is important. A good person should be able to justify the cost savings in the operations would be my argument. Now, when it comes to wrecking the P&L overall, you made the point of increased costs. I think a lot of that comes down to contract negotiations and supplier management, and it would depend on the business. But I don't know if I have a perfect answer to that, but per case basis.
Plant finance certainly isn't like corporate, like you were just saying. It really requires someone on site who can walk the floor and understand what's happening. I know when Scott gets home from work, a lot of times I know when he's been walking the plant, and you're seeing a lot of people, you were saying going back to work, getting away from hybrid. So how can manufacturers overcome the location barrier? People who may not want to come back to work or without overpaying them to do.
I work with a large sugar manufacturer and they have multi-locations. They have a lot of different manufacturing sites across the country. And so they're starting to be more flexible of, okay, if you're in near one of our plants, we'll accept that. So if there's a real squeeze on talent, maybe opening up that flexibility or allowing that person to come in once a month or quarterly trips for FaceTime. If you're willing to do that and you can trust and verify that someone is accountable working from home, that'll definitely save you money. But not a lot of people have that trust on a remote basis. And in some cases, I understand why, but I think that's your best bet and trying to hire trustworthy people with a proven track record of being remote. What else are they doing? I think a lot of searches are going a long time and a lot of companies are relocating and paying relocation costs in order to get that in office, which is then now they're paying the recruiting fee and they're paying the relocation, but they see that as valuable to get someone in the office is what I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's such an interesting conundrum. I know that with my husband's job before, he was on site 5 days a week, and it was a pretty miserable culture. We talk a lot about company culture on this show. And now, even though you're throwing around all those big dollars as far as what cost accountants are making, the company culture, he works from home 2 days a week, goes into the office 3 days a week. He loves it there. And like you mentioned, the trust is there. Number one, because they're on Teams all the time. So sitting at the kitchen, we're still getting the work done.
So we're a recruiting agency and we're headquartered in Delray Beach, Florida, and we have 5 or 6 people local, but we're a team of 57. We have 50 people that are remote. I actually see the value of remote because you can get better talent. And if you treat them like the adult that they are, you can find people that are self-disciplined, are self-motivated. Some people assume they're pouring a cocktail at noon. Some people are actually more productive working from home. And we try to personally have a very remote friendly trust. And then in return, because we trust them, they don't want to violate that trust and it creates a better culture and community. But I'm a 37-year-old millennial. And I understand that's maybe tough for some people to get there when work's been done so differently in the past.
And I think too, like you mentioned, trust a couple times of treating people like adults and also knowing that there's going to be a certain percentage of your employees and they're just going to jack you no matter what you do. That you have that 3 to 5, they're going to do it, but we need to stop treating the other 95% of our employees like they are going to jack us.
Exactly. And when you treat it, you actually get treated better in return and have a better culture. And sometimes I think references are the best way to get that done. Is references. I always go back to that. I know it's very staple in our industry, but the best way to I think to know what you're actually going to get. I always tell people, spend the time, don't skip the references.
Yeah.
It's better to spend 2 or 3 days trying to get those than to be stuck with someone for 6 months and say, God, I should have just checked the references.
Yeah, you would have found out a lot. Even if people are only allowed to give you dates of hire and termination, there's a lot you can read into what the tone of voice is saying.
Yes.
So when a manufacturing company is scaling, so either organically or through private equity, what should the CFO or controller be thinking about from a finance talent planning perspective?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things, but I think you'd have to understand the goal of the private equity firm. If they're wanting to go public, eventually you may need to have internal SEC reporting. But if they're trying to keep it private long term, you don't need to hire for technical accounting and SEC reporting. When you're acquiring companies, you have to think about cash, how much that is going to integrate into your current systems. And if you're growing really fast, you're going to have cash flow issues. You may also have system implementation issues with these acquisitions and integrating them into your current financial reporting package. There's a lot of cultural things that you have to think through on that as well. So I could probably take that 100 different ways, but that's how I would initially respond to that.
Now, we've talked a lot about relationships that still matter in recruiting, and especially in those blue-collar driven environments like manufacturing. So can you share a moment where that human-first approach helped to land a hard-to-find finance hire or a plant or ops-heavy company?
Yeah, I go back to this sugar manufacturer that we work with, and they have had a position for it's a senior financial analyst role, but it's more focused on purchasing and purchasing contracts. And they had the role open for 7 months. And we ended up having to relocate somebody from South Carolina down here to Florida. And one of the things I did was, take the time to actually meet with the person. I helped them find neighborhoods in the area. My wife actually called the candidate and said, hey, you don't want to be in this side of town. You got kids. You want to be here. Here's the school systems. I know recruiters always sell this inflated value of the personal touch, but I do think that actually goes a long way in really getting good talent, is to really put yourself in the candidate's shoes and think about their experience and their journey. Because if you're relocating manufacturing talent, there's a lot of, you're thinking, oh, we'll just reload, give them the U-Haul bonus and they should start in 2 weeks. It's no, that person might have to get somebody they might be changing churches. They might have kids in school. And so I think going that extra mile on the personal side it always helps. Our business is constantly getting attacked by AI. People are trying to replace agency recruiting and tech people. And I understand why, and I don't blame them. But nowadays, having actual real relationships with CFOs, with controllers, it's able to understand specific businesses more and what specific people are needed for that business that AI can't quite do yet. I say that I think there's real value there of having someone that understands your business problems, your complexity, and can create a personal experience that actually lands somebody in the role. AI can't do that yet, and that's still our value.
But I think that also transfers over to the clients that you're working with, because if you as a recruiter who is not going to be spending day-to-day operations in that company is taking the time to deliver that personal touch, there's probably a good chance that your client is as focused as that human first approach too.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I think, I agree with what you just said.
Yeah. And company culture, it's like you said, you're moving somebody from one state to another, not having any idea of what they're getting into and hoping the culture is going to be as good as you're making it out to be. So as much as you can do beforehand, that's certainly going to make the process a lot easier.
Yeah. And I think you get a better brand as a company. And what you were saying about your husband is maybe he could get a higher paying job, but the culture and the flexibility, not everybody's in it for the money. And that's something that I've learned is that a lot of times it's not all about the money, especially at a certain stage in someone's career. They will value other components and flexibility and benefits and overall company culture. And if you do treat people well, that gets out to the community and it becomes easier to attract people versus if you just pay more, but you have a bad culture, you're just going to lose a lot more money and turnover a lot more often.
And you mentioned it too. I think it's so important to look at each candidate for where they are in their career state. When Scott was looking for a job, when he was first looking, he was 59. So there's people out there that were a whole lot of age discrimination going on, but realizing that yes, he's going to retire and you also have an employee who's going to be with you for at least 6 years before he retires versus bringing in somebody who's new from the market that may last a year or two. So really considering each person coming in and like you just said, really I think personalizing the experience for the candidates that you're looking to attract. What are you seeing some of your clients doing to do that? Besides, you mentioned the sugar factory a couple times. What else are you seeing as far as that intro to the company?
I've seen some companies give out discounts on like HOAs here in Florida because we have high property tax.
HOA.
Yep. And so that's been a unique one that I thought showed that the company thought more about it, or like wellness, their benefits package, actually having things in there like life insurance or having things like fitness reimbursements, cell phone allowance reimbursements. Those little things I think can go a long way. I think I see companies like giving people polos when they start and a bag or a folder or a pen or a water bottle with the company. I know it sounds like maybe corporate, but I think those little things, that whole journey and experience, people notice it when you go that extra mile and it starts the experience off on a lot better foot. So I think companies are realizing that and taking those actions to create a great employee onboarding experience. It's funny to go back to one of the things you said is you think about your husband. He would probably stick there 6 years, but then companies are like, hey, I want the young whippersnapper. But can you honestly say that the whippersnapper will be there for 6 years versus your isn't? Right. And I always say everybody wants the young whippersnapper until they meet him. And then they want a promotion in 6 months. And then it depends on what each company has a different, like, do you really want the 25-year-old that wants a promotion every 6 months? And some people want that. And some people are like, I'm exhausted with that. I'd rather have somebody that can actually do the job.
Yeah. And it's funny because he said that with the onboarding and so many of my programs, the company swag is what I talk about, of creating that magical first day, magical first week. And there is nobody prouder to wear your company swag than a new employee. And I always talk about the bar on Friday night. When they go to the bar on Friday night and their friends are going to say, hey, how's the new job? They're either going to say, I have no idea. I was in a basement filling out paperwork all week. Or they're going to say, oh my God, it was awesome. I got this cool polo shirt, got this baseball hat. They took me around. They introduced me to everybody. They're paying part of my HOA fees.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think just mapping that 0 to day 90 journey where like you actually have a program where you actually set expectations and you actually on your first day having somebody walking you a welcome to the company, not just the IT guy that says, here's your computer and cube and your director will be around and the director's not there for 4 days and but if you actually have a 90-day experience with set expectations and a set program and you've got the swag and you've gone, I think that creates an integration and a long-term hire. I think if you just stick them in a cube and the IT guy gets you set up and your leader's too busy to say hi, you might have a turnover. They're going to be gone. Yep,
exactly. So if a manufacturing CEO is listening right now and knows that they need to build or rebuild their finance team, what's the first internal conversation they should have before ever calling a recruiter?
I think you have to have an understanding of your current team, what is lacking and who does what and what it is that you're trying to hire for. Is it understanding your cost accounting? Is it understanding your forecast and your budget, your variance analysis to plan? I think you've got to get crystal clear on what skill set or what function do you need filled that your current either doesn't have enough bandwidth or enough technical experience to perform that function, and really pin down what this new hire, what you're really trying to accomplish. We have a lot of CFOs say, I want them to be technical with IT. They have to have Power BI, Tableau. They have to have cost accounting. They have to have financial accounting. They have to be able to do budgeting, forecasting. And I also want them closing the books and doing financial reporting. And it's okay. That's a lot. What is the main, I think having an internal discussion to evaluate your current team and passions and what functions, and then really identifying what is the major gap that I want to add so that the recruiter has a clear understanding of, okay, what we really need is a business systems analyst that can do Tableau and Power BI dashboards. We don't need someone that could do financial accounting. You already have great financial accounting people. And so that way we all can save time in this experience when we know exactly what we need to hire. I think where CFOs get frustrated is they have this Christmas list of things, and then they get into the interview process and they're like, now we really need this, or now we really need that. It's morphing, it's shifting, months go by. Whereas I think the first step is you can really pin down the multiple stakeholders that are there, agree upon what is the core function that we need to hire and what are the core skills that person needs to have. And if you can agree on that at the stakeholder level, it'll make it faster and more efficient, and so hire the right person. Long answer to your question, but that's what I would say.
Yeah, no, and it's an important conversation to have because I like how you called it a Christmas list. Everybody wants everything, but they realize that what you just said was basically a whole team of people, not just one.
Exactly. Yep. And we see that a lot at the CFO level. It's, do you need a CFO or do you need a controller? And really understanding the difference between those is good. And sometimes you have to talk to the private equity people to say, what's even driving this hire? What are you not getting? And so we have to do a lot of and you're a recruiter too, but we have to do a lot of uncovering, we call it an intake, where we have to understand what is it that we're trying to accomplish here. And each situation is different.
Right. Yeah. And actually, I started my career as an executive recruiter. I haven't been one for a long time. I admire what you do. And
Thanks.
I also like what I do now. So as we get to the end of our time together, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you feel is important for our listeners to know?
It seems like manufacturing is doing really well and hiring a lot right now. I know there's some uncertainty in the economy, but we're seeing a big pickup in hiring in that lane. And I think it's going to continue to be strong for 2 to 3 years. Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball, but with all these uncertainties with tariffs, it does look like manufacturing is going to be a lot of investments coming back. There's going to be reduced tax implications on capital expenditures and investments. So I think manufacturing CFOs are in a good place, hopefully, minus maybe the uptick in raw material costs. So maybe it's a thought of optimism for the industry. And then obviously, if you're ever looking to make an accounting, finance, or technical hire, and you like my approach or think I'm credible, I'd love the opportunity to meet with you and discover your situation. And our team can come in and I think add a lot of value with trying to find the right hire for you.
So if somebody did want to continue the conversation, what is the best way for them to get in touch?
I watch my LinkedIn like a hawk. So you can find me at Will Spengler on LinkedIn. On it, it drives my wife crazy, but if you send me a message there, it could be 11 o'clock at night. I'll see it. I'll get back to you. And then you could always go to our website, www.frederickfox.com, and you can reach out to any of our partners or leaders in the company. We'd love the opportunity to support you.
Awesome. William, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a blast talking to you.
It's been fun meeting you too, Lisa. Appreciate the airtime.
I'm Lisa Ryan, and this is the Manufacturers Network Podcast. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to the Manufacturers Network Podcast. Do me a favor and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues so we can grow this network and connect more fantastic folks just like you. You can either send your buddies to the website at manufacturers-network.com or share the Manufacturers Network podcast on your LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or wherever you and your industry friends hang out. The bigger and faster we grow the network, the stronger and deeper the community we'll all have. Thanks again, and I appreciate you.